Hi, and welcome to Pages Aloud. We're so glad you're here. Today, we're beginning our journey through the English dictionary with the letter A. Whether you're learning, curious, or just love words, this one's for you. Let's begin. A, the first letter of the English and of many other alphabets. The capital A of the alphabets of Middle and Western Europe, as also the small letter A, besides the forms in italic, black letter, etc., are all descended from the Old Latin A, which was borrowed from the Greek alpha of the same form. AAM, a Dutch and German measure of liquids. Aardvark, an edentate mammal of the genus Oricterapus, somewhat resembling a pig common in some parts of southern Africa. It burrows in the ground and feeds entirely on ants, which it catches with its long, slimy tongue. Aardwolf, a carnivorous quadruped, Pertels lalandii, of South Africa, resembling the fox and hyena. See Pertels. Aaronic, alt of Aaronical. Aaronical, pertaining to Aaron, the first high priest of the Jews. Aaron's rod, a rod with one serpent twined around it, thus differing from the caduceus of Mercury, which has two. Abdash, a prefix in many words of Latin origin. It signifies from away, separating, or departure, as an abduct, abstract, abscond. Ub, the 5th month of the Jewish year, according to the ecclesiastical reckoning, the 11th by the civil computation, coinciding nearly with August. Abaca, the Manila hemp plant, Musa textilis, also its fiber. See Manila hemp under Manila. Abassinate, to blind by a red-hot metal plate held before the eyes. Abassination, the act of abassinating. Abacuscus, one of the tiles or squares of a tessellated pavement. An abaculus. Abacist, one who uses an abacus in casting accounts, a calculator. Aback, toward the back or rear, backward. Abactinal, pertaining to the surface or end opposite to the mouth in a radiate animal, opposed to actinal. Abaction, stealing cattle on a large scale. Abactor, one who steals and drives away cattle or beasts by herds or droves. Abaculi, of abaculus. Abaculus, a small tile of glass, marble, or other substance of various colors used in making ornamental patterns in mosaic pavements. Abacuses, of abacus. Abaci, of abacus. Abacus, a calculating table or frame. An instrument for performing arithmetical calculations by balls sliding on wires or counters in grooves, the lowest line representing units, the second line, tens, etc. It is still employed in China. Abada, the rhinoceros. Abaddon, the destroyer or angel of the bottomless pit, the same as Apollyon and Asmodeus. Abaft, behind, toward the stern from, as abaft the wheelhouse. Obeisance, obeisance. Abaser, ivory black or animal charcoal. Abaist, abashed, confounded, discomfited. Abalionate, to transfer the title of from one to another, to alienate. Abalionation, the act of abalionating, alienation, estrangement. Abalone, a univalve mollusk of the genus Haliotis. The shell is lined with mother of pearl and used for ornamental purposes, the sea ear. Several large species are found on the coast of California, clinging closely to the rocks. Aband, to abandon. Abandoned, of abandon. Abandoning, of abandon. Abandon, to cast or drive out. To banish, to expel, to reject. Abandonly, unrestrainedly. Abandone, one to whom anything is legally abandoned. Abandoner, one who abandons. Abandonment, the act of abandoning or the state of being abandoned, total desertion, relinquishment. Abandon, anything forfeited or confiscated. Abanga, a West Indian palm, also the fruit of this palm, the seeds of which are used as a remedy for diseases of the chest. Abonation, alt of abonition. Abonition, banishment. Abarticulation, Articulation, usually that kind of articulation which admits of free motion in the joint. Diarthrosis. Abased. Of abase. Abasing. Of abase. Abase. To lower or depress. To throw or cast down. As to abase the eye. Abasely. Abjectly, downcastly. Abasement. The act of abasing, humbling, or bringing low. The state of being abased or humbled. Humiliation. Abaser. He who or that which abases. Abashed. Of abash. Abashing. Of abash. Abash. To destroy the self-possession of. To confuse or confound as by exciting suddenly a consciousness of guilt, mistake, or inferiority. To put to shame. To disconcert. To discomfit. Abashly. In an abashed manner. Abashment. The state of being abashed. Confusion from shame. Abassi. Alt of abasis. Abasis. A silver coin of Persia worth about 20 cents. Abatable. Capable of being abated. As an abatable writ or nuisance. Abated. Of abate. Abating. Of abate. Abate. To beat down. To overthrow. Abatement. The act of abating or the state of being abated. A lessening, diminution, or reduction. Removal or putting an end to. As the abatement of a nuisance is the suppression thereof. Abater. One who or that which abates. Abatis. Alt of abatis. Abatis. A means of defense formed by felled trees, the ends of whose branches are sharpened and directed outwards or against the enemy. Abatist. Provided with an abatis. Abater. One who abates a nuisance. Abattoirs. Of abattoir. Abattoir. A public slaughterhouse for cattle, sheep, etc. Abature. Grass and sprigs beaten or trampled down by a stag passing through them. Abbot voix. The sounding board over a pulpit or rostrum. Abawed. Astonished, abashed. Abaxial. Alt of abaxal. Abaxal. Away from the axis or central line. Eccentric. Abay. Barking, baying of dogs upon their prey. See bay. Ab. Among weavers' yarn for the warp. Hence abwool is wool for the abbreviation. Abba. Father, religious superior. In the Syriac, Coptic, and Ethiopic churches, a title given to the bishops and by the bishops to the patriarch. Abbacies. Of abbacy. Abbacy. The dignity, estate, or jurisdiction of an abbot. Abbatial. Belonging to an abbey, as abbatial rights. Abbatical. Abbatial. Abbé. The French word answering to the English abbot, the head of an abbey, but commonly a title of respect given in France to every one vested with the ecclesiastical habit or dress. Abbess. A female superior or governess of a nunnery or convent of nuns, having the same authority over the nuns which the abbots have over the monks. See abbey. Abbeys. Of abbey. Abbey. A monastery or society of persons of either sex secluded from the world and devoted to religion and celibacy. Also the monastic building or buildings. Abbot. The superior or head of an abbey. Abbotship. The state or office of an abbot. Abbreviated. Of abbreviate. Abbreviating. Of abbreviate. Abbreviate. To make briefer. To shorten. To abridge. To reduce by contraction or omission, especially of words written or spoken. Abbreviation. The act of shortening or reducing. Abbreviator. One who abbreviates or shortens. Abbreviatory. Serving or tending to abbreviate, shortening, abridging. Abbreviature. An abbreviation, an abbreviated state or form. Abwool. See ab. ABC. The first 3 letters of the alphabet used for the whole alphabet. Abdul. A religious devotee or dervish in Persia. Abderian. Given to laughter, inclined to foolish or incessant merriment. Abderite. An inhabitant of Abdera in Thrace. Abdest. Purification by washing the hands before prayer. a Mohammedan rite. Abdicable, capable of being abdicated. Abdicant, abdicating, renouncing, followed by of. Abdicated, of abdicate. Abdicating, of abdicate. Abdicate, to surrender or relinquish as sovereign power, to withdraw definitely from filling or exercising as a high office station dignity, as to abdicate the throne, the crown, the papacy. Abdication, the act of abdicating, the renunciation of a high office, dignity, or trust by its holder. Commonly the voluntary renunciation of sovereign power, as abdication of the throne, government, power, authority. Abdicative, causing or implying abdication. Abdicator, one who abdicates. Abditive, having the quality of hiding. Obditory, a place for hiding or preserving articles of value. Abdomen, the belly or that part of the body between the thorax and the pelvis. Also the cavity of the belly which is lined by the peritoneum and contains the stomach, bowels, and other viscera. Abdominal, of or pertaining to the abdomen. Ventral, as the abdominal region's muscles cavity. Abdominals, of abdominal. Abdominals, of abdominal. Abdominalia, a group of cirripeds having abdominal appendages. Abdominoscopy, examination of the abdomen to detect abdominal disease. Abdominothoracic, relating to the abdomen and the thorax or chest. Abdominis, having a protuberant belly, pot-bellied. Abduced, of abduce. Abducing, of abduce. Abduce, to draw or conduct away, to withdraw, to draw to a different part. Abducted, of abduct. Abducting, of abduct. Abduct, to take away surreptitiously by force, to carry away a human being wrongfully and usually by violence, to kidnap. Abduction, the act of abducing or abducting, a drawing apart, a carrying away. Abductor, one who abducts. Abeam, on the beam that is on a line which forms a right angle with the ship's keel, opposite to the center of the ship's side. Abear, to bear, to behave. Aberrance, behavior. Abearing, behavior. Abecedarian, one who is learning the alphabet, hence a tyro. Abecedory, pertaining to or formed by the letters of the alphabet, alphabetic, hence rudimentary. Abed, in bed or on the bed. Abeg, same as abai. Abel, the white poplar, Populus alba. Abelian, alt of Abylonian. Abelite, alt of Abylonian. Abylonian, one of a sect in Africa, 4th century, mentioned by St. Augustine, who states that they married but lived in continence after the manner as they pretended of Abel. Abel mosque, an evergreen shrub, hibiscus, formerly Abelmoschus, muscatus, of the East and West Indies and Northern Africa, whose musky seeds are used in perfumery and to flavor coffee, sometimes called musk mallow. Aberdivine, the European siskin, Carduelis spinus, a small green and yellow finch related to the goldfinch. Aber, to wander, to stray. Aberrance, alt of aberrancy. Aberrancy, state of being aberrant, a wandering from the right way, deviation from truth, rectitude, etc. Aberrant, wandering, straying from the right way. Aberrate, to go astray, to diverge. Aberration, the act of wandering, deviation especially from truth or moral rectitude from the natural state or from a type. Aberrational, characterized by aberration. Aberuncate, to weed out. Aberrancator, a weeding machine. Abetted, of abet. Abetting, of abet. Abet, to instigate or encourage by aid or countenance, used in a bad sense of persons and acts, as to abet an ill-doer, to abet one in his wicked courses, to abet vice, to abet an insurrection. Abetment, the act of abetting, as an abetment of treason, crime, etc. Abetal, abetment. Abetter, alt of a better, one who abets, an instigator of an offense or an offender. Evacuation, a partial evacuation. Abeyance, expectancy, condition of being undetermined. Abeyancy, abeyance, abeyant, being in a state of abeyance. Abhal, the berries of a species of cypress in the East Indies. Abominable, abominable, abhominal, inhuman. Abhorred, of abhor, abhorring, of abhor, abhor, to shrink back with shuddering from, to regard with horror or detestation, to feel excessive repugnance toward, to detest to extremity, to loathe. Abhorrence, extreme hatred or detestation, the feeling of utter dislike. Abhorrency, abhorrence, abhorrent, abhorring, detesting, having or showing abhorrence, loathing, hence strongly opposed to, as abhorrent thoughts. Abhorrently, with abhorrence. Abhorrer, one who abhors. Abhorrible, detestable. Abib, the first month of the Jewish ecclesiastical year, corresponding nearly to our April. After the Babylonish captivity, this month was called Nisan. Abidance, the state of abiding, abode, continuance, compliance with. Abode, of abide. Abes, a genus of coniferous trees properly called fir, as the balsam fir and the silver fir. The spruces are sometimes also referred to this genus. Abiatine, a volatile oil distilled from the resin or balsam of the nut pine, Pinus sabiniana, of California. Abietic, of or pertaining to the fir tree or its products, as abietic acid called also sylvic acid. Abiatin, alt of abiatine. Abiatine, a resinous obtained from Strasbourg turpentine or Canada balsam. It is without taste or smell, is insoluble in water, but soluble in alcohol, especially at the boiling point, in strong acetic acid and in ether. Abiatinic, of or pertaining to abiatin, as abiatinic acid. Abiatite, a substance resembling mannite found in the needles of the common silver fir of Europe, Abies pectinata. Abigail, a lady's waiting maid. Habiliment, habiliment, abilities, of ability, ability, the quality or state of being able, power to perform, whether physical, moral, intellectual, conventional, or legal, capacity, skill or competence in doing, sufficiency of strength, skill, resources, etc. In the plural, faculty, talent. Abime, alt of abime, abime, a abyss, abiogenesis, the supposed origination of living organisms from lifeless matter, such genesis as does not involve the action of living parents. Spontaneous generation, called also abiogeny and opposed to biogenesis. Abiogenetic, of or pertaining to abiogenesis. Abiogenist, one who believes that life can be produced independently of antecedent. Abiogenous, produced by spontaneous generation. Abiogeny, same as abiogenesis. Abiological, pertaining to the study of inanimate things. Abirritant, a medicine that diminishes irritation. Abirritate, to diminish the sensibility of, to debilitate. Aberration, a pathological condition opposite to that of irritation, debility, want of strength, asthenia. Aberrative, characterized by aberration or debility. Abit, 3D sing, president of abide. Abject, cast down, low-lying. Abjectness, a very abject or low condition, abjectness. Abjection, the act of bringing down or humbling. Abjectly, meanly, servilely. Abjectness, the state of being abject, abasement, meanness, servility. Abjudge, to take away by judicial decision. Abjudicate, to reject by judicial sentence, also to abjudge. Abjudication, rejection by judicial sentence. Abjugate, to unyoke. Abjunctive, Exceptional. Abjuration. The act of abjuring or forswearing. A renunciation upon oath. As abjuration of the realm, a sworn banishment, an oath taken to leave the country and never to return. Abjuratory. Containing abjuration. Abjured. Of abjure. Abjuring. Of abjure. Abjure. To renounce upon oath. To forswear. To disavow. As to abjure allegiance to a prince. To abjure the realm is to swear to abandon it forever. Abjurement. Renunciation. Abjurer. One who abjures. Ablactate. To wean. Ablactation. The weaning of a child from the breast or of young beasts from their dam. Ablaquiate. To lay bare as the roots of a tree. Ablaquiation. The act or process of laying bare the roots of trees to expose them to the air and water. Ablastemic. Non-germinal. Ablation. A carrying or taking away, removal. Ablatitious. Diminishing, as an ablatitious force. Ablative. Taking away or removing. Oblat. The substitution of one root vowel for another, thus indicating a corresponding modification of use or meaning. Vowel permutation, as get, gat, got, sing, song, hang, hum. Ablaze. On fire, in a blaze gleaming. Able. Fit. Adapted, suitable. Able-bodied. Having a sound, strong body, physically competent, robust. Ablegate. To send abroad. Abligation. The act of sending abroad. Able-minded. Having much intellectual power. Ableness. Ability of body or mind. Force. Vigor. Ablepsy. Blindness. Abler. Comp of able. Ablet. Alt of ablin. Ablin. A small freshwater fish. Lysiscus alburnus. The bleak. Obligate. To tie up so as to hinder from. Obliguration. Prodigal expense for food. Ablance. Perhaps. Abloom. In or into bloom. In a blooming state. Ablood. To be unlike. To differ. Abluent. Washing away. Carrying off impurities. Detergent. Ablush. Blushing, ruddy. Ablution. The act of washing or cleansing. Specifically the washing of the body or some part of it as a religious rite. Ablutionary. Pertaining to ablution. Abluvian. That which is washed off. Ably. In an able manner. With great ability. As ably done plans said. Abnegated. Of abnegate. Abnegating. Of abnegate. Abnegate. To deny and reject. To abjure. Abnegation. A denial. A renunciation. Abnegative. Denying. Renouncing. Negative. Abnegator. One who abnegates, denies, or rejects anything. Abnet. The girdle of a Jewish priest or officer. Abnegate. To clear, tress, from knots. Abnodation. The act of cutting away the knots of trees. Abnormal. Not conform to rule or system, deviating from the type. Anomalous, irregular. Abnormalities. Of abnormality. Abnormality. The state or quality of being abnormal. Variation, irregularity. Abnormally. In an abnormal manner, irregularly. Abnormities. Of abnormity. Abnormity. Departure from the ordinary type. Irregularity, monstrosity. Abnormous. Abnormal, irregular. Aboard. On board. Into or within a ship or boat. Hence into or within a railway car. Abodance. An omen, a portending. Abodement. A foreboding, an omen. Aboding. A foreboding. Abolished. Of abolish. Abolishing. Of abolish. Abolish. To do away with wholly. To annul. To make void. Set of laws, customs, institutions, governments, etc. As to abolish slavery, to abolish folly. Abolishable. Capable of being abolished. Abolisher. One who abolishes. Abolishment. The act of abolishing. Abolition. Destruction. Abolition. the act of abolishing or the state of being abolished, and annulling, abrogation, utter destruction, as the abolition of slavery or the slave trade, the abolition of laws, decrees, ordinances, customs, taxes, debts, etc. Abolitionism, the principles or measures of abolitionists. Abolitionist, a person who favors the abolition of any institution, especially Negro slavery. Abolitionize, to imbue with the principles of abolitionism. Aboma, a large South American serpent, Boa aboma. Abomasum, alt of abomasis. Abomasis, the fourth or digestive stomach of a ruminant which leads from the third stomachomesum. See ruminantia. Abominable, worthy of or causing abhorrence as a thing of evil omen. Odious in the utmost degree, very hateful, detestable, loathsome, execrable. Abominableness, the quality or state of being abominable, odiousness. Abominably, in an abominable manner, very odiously, detestably. Abominated, of abominate, abominating, of abominate, abominate. To turn from as ill-omened, to hate in the highest degree as if with religious dread, loathe, as to abominate all impiety. Abomination, the feeling of extreme disgust and hatred, abhorrence, detestation, loathing, as he holds tobacco in abomination. Abon, and adv, above, aboral, situated opposite to or away from the mouth. Aboard, manner of approaching or accosting, address. Aboriginal, first, original, indigenous, primitive, native, as the aboriginal tribes of America. Aboriginality, the quality of being aboriginal. Aboriginally, primarily. Aborigines, the earliest known inhabitants of a country, native races. Abortment, abortment, abortion, aborsive, abortive, abort, to miscarry, to bring forth young prematurely. Aborted, brought forth prematurely. Aborticide, the act of destroying a fetus in the womb, feticide. Abortifacient, producing miscarriage. Abortion, the act of giving premature birth, particularly the expulsion of the human fetus prematurely or before it is capable of sustaining life, miscarriage. Abortional, pertaining to abortion, miscarrying, abortive. Abortionist, one who procures abortion or miscarriage. Abortive, produced by abortion, born prematurely, as an abortive child. Abortively, in an abortive or untimely manner, immaturely, fruitlessly. Abortiveness, the quality of being abortive. Abortment, abortion, abot, imp, and p of abai, abounded, of abound, abounding, of abound, abound, to be in great plenty, to be very prevalent, to be plentiful. About, around, all round, on every side of. About sledge, the largest hammer used by smiths. Above, in or to a higher place. Higher than, on or over the upper surface. Over, opposed to below or beneath. Aboveboard, above the board or table. Hence, in open sight, without trick, concealment, or deception. Above-sided, cited before in the preceding part of a book or writing. Above deck, on deck, and hence like above board without artifice. Above mentioned, alt of above named. Above named, mentioned or named before, aforesaid. Above said, mentioned or recited before. A box, braced aback. Abracadabra, a mystical word or collocation of letters written, as in the figure. Worn on an amulet, it was supposed to ward off fever. At present the word is used chiefly in jest to denote something without meaning. Jargon, abradant, a material used for grinding as emery, sand, powdered glass, etc. Abraded, of a braid. Abrading, of a braid. Abrade, to rub or wear off. to waste or wear away by friction, as to abrade rocks. Abrahamic, pertaining to Abraham the patriarch, as the Abrahamic covenant. Abrahamitic, alt of Eichel, relating to the patriarch Abraham. Abraham man, alt of Abram man. Abram man, one of a set of vagabonds who formerly roamed through England feigning lunacy for the sake of obtaining alms. Abrade, to awake, to arouse, to stir or start up, also to shout out. Abranchial, abranchiate, abranchiata, a group of annelids so called because the species composing it have no special organs of respiration. Abranchiate, without gills. Abrase, rubbed smooth. Abrasion, the act of abrading, wearing, or rubbing off, the wearing away by friction, as the abrasion of coins. Abrasive, producing abrasion. Abram, alt of Abram salts. Abram salts, a red ochre used to darken mahogany and for making chloride of potassium. Abraxas, a mystical word used as a charm and engraved on gems among the ancients, also a gemstone thus engraved. Abri, see abrade. Abreast, side by side with breasts in a line, as two men could hardly walk abreast. Abrega, see abridge. Abrenounce, to renounce. Abrenunciation, absolute renunciation or repudiation. Abreption, a snatching away. Abreuvoir, the joint or interstice between stones to be filled with mortar. Abercock, see apricot. Abridged, of a bridge. Abridging, of a bridge. Abridge, to make shorter, to shorten in duration, to lessen, to diminish, to curtail, as to abridge labor, to abridge power or rights. Abridger, one who abridges. Abridgment, the act of abridging or the state of being abridged, diminution, lessening, reduction, or deprivation, as an abridgment of pleasures or of expenses. Abroach, to set a broach, to let out as liquor, to broach, to tap. Abroad, at large, widely, broadly, over a wide space, as a tree spreads its branches abroad. Abrogable, capable of being abrogated. Abrogate, abrogated, abolished. Abrogated, of abrogate. Abrogating, of abrogate. Abrogation, the act of abrogating, repeal by authority. Abrogative, tending or designed to abrogate, as an abrogative law. Abrogator, one who repeals by authority. Abrood, in the act of brooding. Abrook, to brook, to endure. Abrupt, broken off, very steep or craggy as rocks, precipices, banks. Precipitous, steep, as abrupt places. Abruption, a sudden breaking off, a violent separation of bodies. Abruptly, in an abrupt manner, without giving notice or without the usual forms, suddenly. Abruptness, the state of being abrupt or broken. Cragness, ruggedness, steepness. Abscesses, of abscess. Abscess, a collection of pus or purulent matter in any tissue or organ of the body, the result of a morbid process. Abscession, a separating, removal, also an abscess. Abscend, to cut off. Abscission, see abscission. Abscisses, of absciss. Absciss, see abscissa. Abscisses, of abscissa. Abscissi, of abscissa. Abscissa, one of the elements of reference by which a point as of a curve is referred to a system of fixed rectilineal coordinate axes. Abscission, the act or process of cutting off. Absconded, of abscond. Absconding, of abscond. Abscond, to hide, withdraw, or be concealed. Abscondence, fugitive concealment, secret retirement, hiding. Absconder, one who absconds. Absence, a state of being absent or withdrawn from a place or from companionship, opposed to presence. Absent, being away from a place, withdrawn from a place, not present. Absented, of absent, absenting, of absent, absentaneous, pertaining to absence. Absentation, the act of absenting oneself. Absentee, one who absents himself from his country office post or duty, especially a landholder who lives in another country or district than that where his estate is situated, as an Irish absentee. Absenteeism, the state or practice of an absentee, especially the practice of absenting oneself from the country or district where one's estate is situated. Absenter, one who absents oneself. Absently, in an absent or abstracted manner. Absentment, the state of being absent, withdrawal. Absent-minded, absent in mind, abstracted, preoccupied. Absentness, the quality of being absent-minded. Absy book, an ABC book, a primer. Absinthate, a combination of absinthic acid with a base or positive radical. Absinthe, alt of absinthe. Absinthe, the plant absinthium or common wormwood. Absinthial, of or pertaining to wormwood. Absinthian. Absinthian, of the nature of wormwood. Absinthiate, to impregnate with wormwood. Absinthiated, impregnated with wormwood, as absinthiated wine. Absinthic, relating to the common wormwood or to an acid obtained from it. Absinthin, the bitter principle of wormwood, Artemisia absinthium. Absinthism, the condition of being poisoned by the excessive use of absinthe. Absinthium, the common wormwood, Artemisia absinthium, an intensely bitter plant used as a tonic and for making the oil of wormwood. Abscess, see abscess. Absist, to stand apart from, top leave off, to desist. Subsistence, a standing aloof. Absolute, loosed from any limitation or condition, uncontrolled, unrestricted, unconditional, as absolute authority, monarchy, sovereignty, and absolute promise or command, absolute power, an absolute monarch. Absolutely, in an absolute independent or unconditional manner, wholly, positively. Absoluteness, the quality of being absolute, independence of everything extraneous, unlimitedness, absolute power, independent reality, positiveness. Absolution, an absolving or setting free from guilt, sin, or penalty, forgiveness of an offense. Absolutism, the state of being absolute, the system or doctrine of the absolute, the principles or practice of absolute or arbitrary government. Despotism, absolutist, one who is in favor of an absolute or autocratic government. Absolutistic, pertaining to absolutism, absolutist. Absolutory, serving to absolve, absolving. Absolvable, that may be absolved. Absolvatory, conferring absolution, absolutory. Absolved, of absolve. Absolving, of absolve. Absolve, to set free or release as from some obligation, debt, or responsibility, or from the consequences of guilt or such ties as it would be sin or guilt to violate, to pronounce free. Absolvent, absolving. Absolver, one who absolves. Abstinent, discordant, contrary, opposed to consonant. Abstinence, discordant, inharmonious, incongruous. Absorbed, of absorb. Absorbing, of absorb. Absorb, to swallow up, to engulf, to overwhelm, to cause to disappear as if by swallowing up, to use up, to include. Absorbability, the state or quality of being absorbable. Absorbable, capable of being absorbed or swallowed up. Absorbly, in a manner as if wholly engrossed or engaged. Absorbency, absorptiveness. Absorbent, absorbing, swallowing, absorptive. Absorber, one who or that which absorbs. Absorbition, absorption. Absorped, absorbed. Absorption, the act or process of absorbing or sucking in anything or of being absorbed and made to disappear, as the absorption of bodies in a whirlpool, the absorption of a smaller tribe into a larger. Absorptive, having power, capacity, or tendency to absorb or imbibe. Absorptiveness, the quality of being absorptive, absorptive power. Absorptivity, absorptiveness. Absquatulate, to take oneself off, to decamp. Absquihawk, the technical words of denial used in traversing what has been alleged and is repeated. Abstained, of abstain, abstaining, of abstain, abstain, to hold one's self aloof, to forbear or refrain voluntarily and especially from an indulgence of the passions or appetites, with from. Abstainer, one who abstains, ESP, one who abstains from the use of intoxicating liquors. Abstemious, abstaining from wine. Abstemiousness, the quality of being abstemious, temperate, or sparing in the use of food and strong drinks. It expresses a greater degree of abstinence than temperance. Abstention, the act of abstaining, a holding aloof. Abstentious, characterized by abstinence, self-restraining. Absterge, to make clean by wiping, to wipe away, to cleanse, hence to purge. Abstergent, serving to cleanse detergent. Absterse, to absterge, to cleanse, to purge away. Abstersion, act of wiping clean, a cleansing, a purging. Abstersive, cleansing, purging. Abstersiveness, the quality of being abstersive. Abstinence, the act or practice of abstaining. Voluntary forbearance of any action, especially the refraining from an indulgence of appetite or from customary gratifications of animal or sensual propensities. Abstinency, abstinence. Abstinent, refraining from indulgence, especially from the indulgence of appetite. Abstemious, continent, temperate. Abstinently, with abstinence. Abstorted, rested away. Abstract, withdraw, separate. Abstracted, of abstract. Abstracting, of abstract. Abstractedly, in an abstracted manner, separately, with absence of mind. Abstractedness, the state of being abstracted, abstract character. Abstractor, one who abstracts or makes an abstract. Abstraction, the act of abstracting, separating, or withdrawing, or the state of being withdrawn, withdrawal. Abstractional, pertaining to abstraction. Abstractionist, an idealist. Abstractitious, obtained from plants by distillation. Abstractive, having the power of abstracting, of an abstracting nature. Abstractively, in an abstract manner, separately, in or by itself. Abstractiveness, the quality of being abstractive, abstractive property. Abstractly, in an abstract state or manner, separately, absolutely, by itself, as matter abstractly considered. Abstractness, the quality of being abstract. Abstringe, to unbind. Abstrud, to thrust away. Abstruse, concealed or hidden out of the way. Abstrusely, in an abstruse manner. Abstruseness, the quality of being abstruse, difficulty of apprehension. Abstrusion, the act of thrusting away. Abstrusity, abstruseness, that which is abstruse. Absum, to consume gradually, to waste away. Absumption, act of wasting away, a consuming, extinction. Absurd, contrary to reason or propriety, obviously and fiatly opposed to manifest truth, inconsistent with the plain dictates of common sense, logically contradictory, nonsensical, ridiculous, as an absurd person, an absurd opinion, an absurd dream. Absurdities, of absurdity. Absurdity, the quality of being absurd or inconsistent with obvious truth, reason, or sound judgment. Absurdly, in an absurd manner. Absurdness, absurdity. Abuna, the patriarch or head of the Abyssinian church. Abundance, an overflowing fullness, ample sufficiency, great plenty, profusion, copious supply, superfluity, wealth. Strictly applicable to quantity only, but sometimes used of number. Abundant, fully sufficient, plentiful, in copious supply, followed by and rarely by with. Abundantly, in a sufficient degree, fully, amply, plentifully, in large measure. Aburst, in a bursting condition. Abusable, that may be abused. Abusage, abuse. Abused, of abuse. Abusing, of abuse. Abuse, to put to a wrong use, to misapply, to misuse, to put to a bad use, to use for a wrong purpose or end, to pervert, as to abuse inherited gold, to make an excessive use of, as to abuse one's authority. Abuseful, full of abuse, abusive. Abuser, one who abuses in the various senses of the verb. Abusion, evil or corrupt usage, abuse, wrong, reproach, deception, cheat. Abusive, wrongly used, perverted, misapplied. Abusively, in an abusive manner, rudely, with abusive language. Abusiveness, the quality of being abusive, rudeness of language or violence to the person. Abutted, of abut. Abutting, of abut. Abut, to project, to terminate or border, to be contiguous, to meet, with on upon or against, as his land abuts on the road. Abutilon, a genus of malvaceous plants of many species found in the torrid and temperate zones of both continents, called also Indian mallow. Abutment, state of abutting. Abuttal, the budding or boundary of land, particularly at the end, a headland. Abutter, one who or that which abuts, specifically the owner of a contiguous estate, as the abutters on a street or a river. Abuzz, in a buzz, buzzing. Abuy, alt of abuy, abuy, to pay for, to suffer for, to atone for, to make amends for, to give satisfaction. Abysm, an abyss, a gulf. Abysmal, pertaining to or resembling an abyss. Bottomless, unending, profound. Abysmally, to a fathomless depth, profoundly. Abyss, a bottomless or unfathomed depth, gulf, or chasm. Hence any deep, immeasurable, and specifically hell or the bottomless pit. Abyssal, belonging to or resembling an abyss, unfathomable. Abyssinian, of or pertaining to Abyssinia. Acacia, a roll or bag filled with dust borne by Byzantine emperors as a memento of mortality. It is represented on medals. Acacias, of acacia. Acaciae, of acacia. Acasin, alt of acacine. Acacine, gum Arabic. Academe, an academy. Academial, academic. Academian, a member of an academy, university, or college. Academic, alt of academical. Academical, belonging to the school or philosophy of Plato, as the academic sect or philosophy. Academically, in an academical manner. Academicals, the articles of dress prescribed and worn at some colleges and universities. Academician, a member of an academy or society for promoting science, art, or literature, as of the French Academy or the Royal Academy of Arts. Academicism, a tenet of the academic philosophy. Academism, the doctrines of the academic philosophy. Academist, an academic philosopher. Academies, of academy. Academy, a garden or grove near Athens, so named from the hero Academus, where Plato and his followers held their philosophical conferences, hence the school of philosophy of which Plato was head. Acadian, of or pertaining to Acadie or Nova Scotia. Acajou, the cashew tree, also its fruit. See cashew. Acalephes, of a caliphan. A caliphans. Of a caliphan. Akalef. Alt of a caliphan. A caliphan. One of the Acalifi. Acalifi. A group of coelenterata including the medusae or jellyfishes and hydroids, so called from the stinging power they possess, sometimes called sea nettles. Acalephoid. Belonging to or resembling the Acalifi or jellyfishes. Acalycine. Alt of acalizinous. Acalizinous. Without a calyx or outer floral envelope. Acanth. Same as acanthus. Acantha. A prickle. Acanthaceous. Armed with prickles as a plant. Acanthin. Of pertaining to or resembling the plant acanthus. Acanthocarpus. Having the fruit covered with spines. Acanthocephala. A group of intestinal worms having the proboscis armed with recurved spines. Acanthocephalus. Having a spiny head as one of the acanthocephala. Acanthophorus. Spine-bearing. Acanthopodius. Having spinous petioles. Acanthoptery. A group of teleostean fishes having spiny fins. See Acanthopterygii. Acanthopterus. Spiny-winged. Acanthopterygian. Belonging to the order of fishes having spinose fins as the perch. Acanthopterygii. An order of fishes having some of the rays of the dorsal ventral and anal fins unarticulated and spine-like as the perch. Acanthopterygus. Having fins in which the rays are hard and spine-like, spiny-finned. Acanthuses. Of acanthus. Acanthi. Of acanthus. Acanthus. A genus of herbaceous prickly plants found in the south of Europe, Asia Minor, and India, bears breech. A cappella. In church or chapel style, set of compositions sung in the old church style without instrumental accompaniment. As a mass a cappella i.e., a mass purely vocal. A capsular. Having no capsule. Acardiac. Without a heart, as an acardiac fetus. A keratin. One of a group of arachnids including the mites and ticks. A carina. The group of arachnida which includes the mites and ticks. Many species are parasitic and cause diseases like the itch and mange. Acarine. Of or caused by acari or mites, as acarine diseases. Acaroid. Shaped like or resembling a mite. Acarpalus. Having no carpels. Acarpus. Not producing fruit, unfruitful. Acari. Of acarus. Acarus. A genus including many species of small mites. Acatalectic. Not defective, complete, as an acatalectic verse. A catalepsy. Incomprehensibility of things. The doctrine held by the ancient skeptic philosophers that human knowledge never amounts to certainty, but only to probability. Acataleptic. Incapable of being comprehended, incomprehensible. A cater. See caterer. Acates. See cates. Acaudate. Tailless. Acaulescent. Having no stem or callus or only a very short one concealed in the ground. Acaline. Same as acaulescent. Acalos. Alt of acaulos. Acaulos. Same as acaulescent. Akkadian. Pertaining to a race supposed to have lived in Babylonia before the Assyrian conquest. Acceded. Of accede. Acceding. Of accede. Accede. To approach. To come forward, opposed to recede. Accedence. The act of acceding. Acceder. One who accedes. Accelerando. Gradually accelerating the movement. Accelerated. Of accelerate. Accelerating. Of accelerate. Accelerate. To cause to move faster. To quicken the motion of. To add to the speed of. Opposed to retard. Acceleration. The act of accelerating or the state of being accelerated. Increase of motion or action. As a falling body moves toward the earth with an acceleration of velocity, opposed to retardation. Accelerative. Relating to acceleration, adding to velocity, quickening. Accelerator. One who or that which accelerates. Also as an ADJ, as accelerator nerves, acceleratory, accelerative, accelerograph, an apparatus for studying the combustion of powder in guns, etc. Accelerometer, an apparatus for measuring the velocity imparted by gunpowder. Accent, to set on fire, to kindle. Accendability, capacity of being kindled or of becoming inflamed. Inflammability. Accendable, capable of being inflamed or kindled. Combustible, inflammable. Accension, the act of kindling or the state of being kindled. Ignition. Accensor, one of the functionaries who light and trim the tapers. Accent, a superior force of voice or of articulative effort upon some particular syllable of a word or a phrase distinguishing it from the others. Accented, of accent. Accenting, of accent. Accentless, without accent. Accenter, one who sings the leading part, the director or leader. Accentuable, capable of being accented. Accentual, of or pertaining to accent, characterized or formed by accent. Accentuality, the quality of being accentual. Accentually, in an accentual manner, in accordance with accent. Accentuated, of accentuate. Accentuating, of accentuate. Accentuate, to pronounce with an accent or with accents. Accentuation, act of accentuating, applications of accent. Accepted, of accept. Accepting, of accept. Accept, to receive with a consenting mind something offered, as to accept a gift, often followed by of. Acceptability, the quality of being acceptable. Acceptableness. Acceptable, capable, worthy, or sure of being accepted or received with pleasure, pleasing to a receiver, gratifying, agreeable, welcome, as an acceptable present, one acceptable to us. Acceptableness, the quality of being acceptable or suitable to be favorably received. Acceptability, acceptably, in an acceptable manner, in a manner to please or give satisfaction. Acceptance, the act of accepting, or receiving what is offered with approbation, satisfaction, or acquiescence, especially favorable reception, approval, as the acceptance of a gift, office, doctrine, etc. Acceptancy, acceptance, acceptant, accepting, receiving. Acceptation, acceptance, reception, favorable reception or regard, state of being acceptable. Acceptedly, in an accepted manner, admittedly. Acceptor, a person who accepts, a taker. Acceptolation, gratuitous discharge, a release from debt or obligation without payment, free remission. Acception, acceptation, the received meaning. Acceptive, fit for acceptance. Acceptor, one who accepts. Access, a coming to or near approach. Admittance, admission, accessibility, as to gain access to a prince. Accessorily, in the manner of an accessory. Accessoriness, the state of being accessory. Accessory, accompanying as a subordinate, additional, accessory, especially uniting in or contributing to a crime but not as chief actor. See accessory. Accessories, of accessory. Accessibility, the quality of being accessible or of admitting approach. Receptibility. Accessible, easy of access or approach. Approachable, as an accessible town or mountain, an accessible person. Accessibly, in an accessible manner. Accession, a coming to, the act of acceding and becoming joined, as a king's accession to a confederacy. Accessional, pertaining to accession, additional. Accessive, additional. Accessorial, of or pertaining to an accessory, as accessorial agency, accessorial guilt. Accessorily, in the manner of an accessory, auxiliary. Accessoriness, the state of being accessory or connected subordinately. Accessory, accompanying as a subordinate, aiding in a secondary way. Additional, connected as an incident or subordinate to a principle. Accessories. Of accessory. Acciaccatura. A short grace note, one semitone below the note to which it is prefixed, used especially in organ music. Now used as equivalent to the short epira. Accidents. The accidents of inflections of words, the rudiments of grammar. Accident. Literally a befalling, an event that takes place without one's foresight or expectation, an undesigned, sudden, and unexpected event. Chance. Contingency. Accidental. Happening by chance or unexpectedly. Taking place not according to the usual course of things. Casual. Fortuitous. As an accidental visit. Accidentalism. Accidental character or effect. Accidentality. The quality of being accidental, accidentalness. Accidentally. In an accidental manner. Unexpectedly. By chance. Unintentionally. Casually. Fortuitously. Not essentially. Accidentalness. The quality of being accidental, casualness. Accidie. Sloth, torpor. Accipensor. See accipensor. Accipient. A receiver. Accipiters. Of accipiter. Accipiters. Of accipiter. Accipiter. A genus of rapacious birds. One of the accipiters or raptors. Accipitral. Pertaining to or of the nature of a falcon or hawk. Hawk-like. Accipitrine. Like or belonging to the accipiters. Raptorial. Hawk-like. Axismus. Affected refusal. Coyness. Excite. To cite. To summon. Acclaim. To applaud. Acclaimer. One who acclaims. Acclamation. A shout of approbation, favor, or assent. Eager expression of approval. Loud applause. Acclamatory. Pertaining to or expressing approval by acclamation. Acclimatable. Capable of being acclimated. Acclimatation. Acclimatization. Acclimated. Of acclimate. Acclimating. Of acclimate. Acclimate. To habituate to a climate not native. To acclimatize. Acclimatement. Acclamation. Acclamation. The process of becoming or the state of being acclimated or habituated to a new climate. Acclimatization. Acclimatizable. Acclimatization. The act of acclimatizing. The process of inuring to a new climate or the state of being so inured. Acclimatized. Of acclimatize. Acclimatizing. Of acclimatize. Acclimatize. To inure or habituate to a climate different from that which is natural. To adapt to the peculiarities of a foreign or strange climate. Said of man the inferior animals or plants. Acclimature. The act of acclimating or the state of being acclimated. Acclive. Acclivus. Acclivitus. Acclivus. Acclivities. Of acclivity. Acclivity. A slope or inclination of the earth as the side of a hill considered as ascending in opposition to declivity or descending, an upward slope, ascent. Acclivus. Sloping upward, rising as a hillside, opposed to declivus. Accloy. To fill to satiety, to stuff full, to clog, to overload, to burden. See cloy. Accost. To lie or sail along the coast or side of, to accost. Accoil. To gather together, to collect. Accolade. A ceremony formerly used in conferring knighthood consisting in embrace and a slight blow on the shoulders with the flat blade of a sword. A combination. A combining together. Accommodable. That may be accommodated, fitted, or made to agree. Accommodablness. The quality or condition of being accommodable. Accommodated. Of accommodate. Accommodating. Of accommodate. Accommodate. To render fit, suitable, or correspondent. To adapt. To conform. As to accommodate ourselves to circumstances. Accommodately. Suitably, fitly. Accommodateness. Fitness. Accommodation. The act of fitting or adapting or the state of being fitted or adapted. Adaptation. Adjustment. followed by to. Accommodator, he who or that which accommodates. Accompaniable, sociable. Accompanier, he who or that which accompanies. Accompaniment, that which accompanies, something that attends as a circumstance or which is added to give greater completeness to the principal thing or by way of ornament or for the sake of symmetry. Accompanist, the performer in music who takes the accompanying part. Accompanied, of accompany, accompanying, of accompany, accompany, to go with or attend as a companion or associate, to keep company with, to go along with, followed by with or by, as he accompanied his speech with a bow. Accompletive, tending to accomplish. Accomplice, a cooperator. Accomplishship, the state of being an accomplice. Accomplicity, the act or state of being an accomplice. Accomplished, of accomplish. Accomplishing, of accomplish. Accomplish, to complete as time or distance. Accomplishable, capable of being accomplished, practicable. Accomplisher, one who accomplishes. Accomplishment, the act of accomplishing, entire performance, completion, fulfillment, as the accomplishment of an enterprise of a prophecy, etc. Accompt, see account. Accountable, see accountable. Accomptant, see accountant. Accord, agreement or concurrence of opinion, will, or action, harmony of mind, consent, assent. Accorded, of accord. According, of accord. Accordable, agreeing. Accordance, agreement, harmony, conformity. Accordancy, accordance. Accordant, agreeing, consonant. Harmonious, corresponding, conformable, followed by with or to. Accordantly, in accordance or agreement. Agreeably, conformably, followed by with or to. Accorder, one who accords assents or concedes. Accordingly, agreeably, correspondingly, suitably, in a manner conformable. Accordion, a small portable keyed wind instrument whose tones are generated by play of the wind upon free metallic reeds. Accordionist, a player on the accordion. Accordment, agreement, reconcilement. Accorporate, to unite, to attach, to incorporate. Accosted, of accost. Accosting, of accost. Accost, to join side to side, to border, hence to sail along the coast or side of. Accostable, approachable, affable. Accouchement, delivery in childbed. Accoucheur, a man who assists women in childbirth. A man midwife, an obstetrician. Accoucheuse, a midwife. Account, a reckoning. Computation, calculation, enumeration, a record of some reckoning, as the Julian account of time. Accounted, of account. Accounting, of account. Accountability, the state of being accountable, liability to be called on to render an account, accountableness. Accountable, liable to be called on to render an account, answerable, as every man is accountable to God for his conduct. Accountableness, the quality or state of being accountable, accountability. Accountably, in an accountable manner. Accountancy, the art or employment of an accountant. Accountant, one who renders account, one accountable. Accountantship, the office or employment of an accountant. Account book, a book in which accounts are kept. A couple, to join, to couple. A couplement, the act of coupling or the state of being coupled, union. A courage, to encourage. A court, to treat courteously, to court. Accoutred, of accouter. Accoutred, of accouter. Accoutering, of accouter. Accoutering, of accouter. Accouter, alt of accouter. Accouter, to furnish with dress or equipments, especially those for military service. To equip, to attire, to array. Accouterments, alt of accouterments. Accouterments, dress, trappings, equipment, specifically the devices and equipments worn by soldiers. Echoey, to render quiet, to soothe. Accredited, of a credit. Accrediting, of a credit. Accredit, to put or bring into credit, to invest with credit or authority, to sanction. Accreditation, the act of accrediting, as letters of accreditation. Acromentitial, pertaining to acromention. Acromentition, the process of generation by development of blastema or fission of cells in which the new formation is in all respect like the individual from which it proceeds. Accress, to accrue. Accrescence, continuous growth and accretion. Accrescent, growing, increasing. Accrete, to grow together. Accretion, the act of increasing by natural growth, especially the increase of organic bodies by the internal accession of parts, organic growth. Accretive, relating to accretion, increasing or adding to by growth. Accriminate, to accuse of a crime. Accroach, to hook or draw to oneself, as with a hook. Accroachment, an encroachment, usurpation. Accrual, accruement. Accrued, of accrue. Accruing, of accrue. Accrue, to increase, to augment. Accruer, the act of accruing. Accretion, as title by accruer. Accruement, the process of accruing or that which has accrued, increase. Accubation, the act or posture of reclining on a couch as practiced by the ancients at meals. Accum, to recline as at table. Accumbency, the state of being incumbent or reclining. Accumbent, leaning or reclining as the ancients did at their meals. Accumber, to encumber. Accumulated, of accumulate. Accumulating, of accumulate. Accumulate, to heap up and amass, to pile up, to collect or bring together, to amass, as to accumulate a sum of money. Accumulation, the act of accumulating the state of being accumulated or that which is accumulated, as an accumulation of earth, of sand, of evils, of wealth, of honors. Accumulative, characterized by accumulation, serving to collect or amass. Cumulative, additional. Accumulator, one who or that which accumulates, collects, or amasses. Accuracy, the state of being accurate. Freedom from mistakes, this exemption arising from carefulness. Exact conformity to truth or to a rule or model. Precision, exactness, nicety, correctness, as the value of testimony depends on its accuracy. Accurate, in exact or careful conformity to truth or to some standard of requirement, the result of care or pains. Free from failure, error, or defect. Exact, as an accurate calculator, an accurate measure, accurate expression, knowledge, etc. Accurately, in an accurate manner, exactly, precisely, without error or defect. Accurateness, the state or quality of being accurate, accuracy, exactness, nicety, precision. Accurse, to devote to destruction, to imprecate misery or evil upon. To curse, to execrate, to anathematize. Accursed, alt of accursed. Accursed, doomed to destruction or misery. Cursed, hence bad enough to be under the curse. Execrable, detestable, exceedingly hateful, as an accursed deed. Accusable, liable to be accused or censured, chargeable with a crime or fault, blamable. With of. Accusal, accusation. Accusant, an accuser. Accusation, the act of accusing or charging with a crime or with a lighter offense. Accusatival, pertaining to the accusative case. Accusative, producing accusations, accusatory. Accusatively, in an accusative manner. Accusatorial, accusatory. Accusatorially, by way accusation. Accusatory, pertaining to or containing an accusation, as an accusatory libel. Accuse, accusation. accused, of accuse, accusing, of accuse, accusement, accusation, accuser, one who accuses, one who brings a charge of crime or fault, accusingly, in an accusing manner, accustomed, of accustom, accustoming, of accustom, accustom, to make familiar by use, to habituate, familiarize, or inure, with to, accustomable, habitual, customary, wanted, accustomably, according to custom, ordinarily, customarily, accustomance, custom, habitual use, accustomarily, customarily, accustomary, usual, customary, accustomedness, habituation, aces, of ace, ace, a unit, a single point or spot on a card or die, the card or die so marked as the ace of diamonds. Aceldama, the potter's field said to have lain south of Jerusalem, purchased with the bribe which Judas took for betraying his master, and therefore called the field of blood. Fig, a field of bloodshed. Acentric, not centered, without a center. Acephal, one of the acephala. Acephala, that division of the mollusca which includes the bivalve shells like the clams and oysters, so called because they have no evident head. Formerly the group included the tunicata brachiopoda and sometimes the bryozoa. See mollusca. Acephalon, same as acephal. Acephali, a fabulous people reported by ancient writers to have heads. Acephalist, one who acknowledges no head or superior. Acephalocyst, a larval entozoan in the form of a subglobular or oval vesicle or hydatid filled with fluid, sometimes found in the tissues of man and the lower animals. Acephalocystic, pertaining to or resembling the acephalocysts. Acephalous, headless. Acerate, a combination of aceric acid with a salifiable base. Acerb, sour, bitter, and harsh to the taste, as unripe fruit, sharp and harsh. Acerbate, to sour, to embitter, to irritate. Acerbic, sour or severe. Acerbitude, sourness and harshness. Acerbity, sourness of taste with bitterness and astringency, like that of unripe fruit. Aceric, pertaining to or obtained from the maple, as aceric acid. Aceros, having the nature of chaff, chaffy. Acerus, same as aceros. Acerval, pertaining to a heap. Acervate, to heap up. Acervation, a heaping up, accumulation. Acervative, heaped up, tending to heap up. Acervos, full of heaps. Acervulin, resembling little heaps. Accessence, alt of accessancy. Accessancy, the quality of being ascent, the process of acetous fermentation, a moderate degree of sourness. Ascent, turning sour, readily becoming tart or acid, slightly sour. Astable, an acetabulum, or about 1/8 of a pint. Acetabular, cup-shaped, saucer-shaped, acetabuliform. Acetabulifera, the division of cephalopoda in which the arms are furnished with cup-shaped suckers as the cuttlefishes, squids, and octopus, the dibranchiata. See cephalopoda. Acetabuliferous, furnished with fleshy cups for adhering to bodies as cuttlefish, etc. Acetabuliform, shaped like a shallow cup, saucer-shaped, as an acetabuliform calyx. Acetabulum, a vinegar cup, socket of the hip bone, a measure of about 1/8 of a pint, etc. Acetal, a limpid, colorless, inflammable liquid from the slow oxidation of alcohol under the influence of platinum black. Acetaldehyde, acetic aldehyde, see aldehyde. Acetamide, a white crystalline solid from ammonia by replacement of an equivalent of hydrogen by acetyl. Acetanilide, a compound of aniline with acetyl used to allay fever or pain, called also antifebrin. Acetarious, used in salads, as acetarious plants. Acetary, an acid pulp in certain fruits, as the pear. Acetate, a salt formed by the union of acetic acid with a base or positive radical, as acetate of lead, acetate of potash. Acetate, combined with acetic acid. Acetic, of a pertaining to vinegar, producing vinegar as acetic fermentation. Acetification, the act of making acetous or sour, the process of converting or of becoming converted into vinegar. Acetifier, an apparatus for hastening acetification. Acetified, of acetify, acetifying, of acetify, acetify, to convert into acid or vinegar. Acetimeter, an instrument for estimating the amount of acetic acid in vinegar or in any liquid containing acetic acid. Acetimetry, the act or method of ascertaining the strength of vinegar or the proportion of acetic acid contained in it. Acetone, a combination of acetic acid with glycerin. Acetize, to acetify. Acetometer, same as acetimeter. Acetone, a volatile liquid consisting of 3 parts of carbon, 6 of hydrogen, and 1 of oxygen, pyroacetic spirit, obtained by the distillation of certain acetates or by the destructive distillation of citric acid, starch, sugar, or gum with quicklime. Acetonic, of or pertaining to acetone, as acetonic bodies. Acetose, sour like vinegar, acetus. Acetosity, the quality of being acetous, sourness. Acetus, having a sour taste, sour, acid. Acetyl, a complex hypothetical radical composed of 2 parts of carbon to 3 of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. Its hydroxide is acetic acid. Acetylene, a gaseous compound of carbon and hydrogen in the proportion of 2 atoms of the former to 2 of the latter. It is a colorless gas with a peculiar unpleasant odor and is produced for use as an illuminating gas in a number of ways, but chiefly by the action of water on calcium carbide. Its light is very brilliant. ACH, alt of ache, ache, a name given to several species of plants, as small as wild celery, parsley. Achaean, alt of Achaean, Achaean, of or pertaining to Achaia in Greece, also Grecian. Asharnama, savage fierceness, ferocity. Acate, an agate. Achatina, a genus of land snails, often large, common in the warm parts of America and Africa. Achatur, purveyor, achater. Ached, of ache, aching, of ache. Achaean, see Achaean, Achaean. Achene, alt of achenium. Achenium, a small dry indehiscent fruit containing a single seed, as in the buttercup, called a naked seed by the earlier botanists. Achenial, pertaining to an Achene. Acheron, a river in the nether world or infernal regions. Also the infernal regions themselves. By some of the English poets, it was supposed to be a flaming lake or gulf. Acherontic, of or pertaining to Acheron. Infernal, hence dismal, gloomy, moribund. Achievable, capable of being achieved. Achievance, achievement, achieved, of achieve. Achieving, of achieve. Achieve, to carry on to a final close, to bring out into a perfected state, to accomplish, to perform, as to achieve a feat, an exploit, an enterprise. Achievement, the act of achieving or performing, and obtaining by exertion, successful performance, accomplishment, as the achievement of his object. Achiever, one who achieves, a winner. Achillean, resembling Achilles, the hero of the Iliad, invincible. Achilles tendon, the strong tendon formed of the united tendons of the large muscles in the calf of the leg and inserted into the bone of the heel. So called from the mythological account of Achilles being held by the heel when dipped in the river Styx. Achelis, without a lip. Achiote, seeds of the annatto tree, also the coloring matter annatto. Achlamydate, not possessing a mantle, said of certain gastropods. Achlamidius, naked, having no floral envelope, neither calyx nor corolla. Acolia, deficiency or want of bile. Acolus, lacking bile. Achromatic, free from color, transmitting light without decomposing it into its primary colors. Achromatically, in an achromatic manner. Achromaticity, achromatism. Achromatin, tissue which is not stained by fluid dyes. Achromatism, the state or quality of being achromatic, as the achromatism of a lens, achromaticity. Achromatization, the act or process of achromatizing. Achromatized, of achromatize. Achromatizing, of achromatize. Achromatize, to deprive of color, to make achromatic. Achronic, see achronic. Acrodextrin, dextrin not colorable by iodine. See dextrin. Acrus, colorless, achromatic. Achylus, without chyle. Achymus, without chyme. Aciculae, of acicula. Acicula, one of the needle-like or bristle-like spines or prickles of some animals and plants. Also a needle-like crystal. Acicular, needle-shaped, slender like a needle or bristle as some leaves or crystals, also having sharp points like needless. Aciculate, alt of aciculated. Aciculated, furnished with aciculae. Aciculiform, needle-shaped, acicular. Aciculite, needle or. Acid, sour, sharp, or biting to the taste. Tart, having the taste of vinegar, as acid fruits or liquors. Also figure, sour-tempered. Acidic, containing a high percentage of silica, opposed to basic. Acidiferous, containing or yielding an acid. Acidifiable, capable of being acidified or converted into an acid. Acidific, producing acidity, converting into an acid. Acidification, the act or process of acidifying or changing into an acid. Acidifier, a simple or compound principle whose presence is necessary to produce acidity, as oxygen, chlorine, bromine, iodine, etc. Acidified, of acidify, acidifying, of acidify, acidify, to make acid, to convert into an acid, as to acidify sugar. Acidimeter, an instrument for ascertaining the strength of acids. Acidimetry, the measurement of the strength of acids, especially by a chemical process based on the law of chemical combinations or the fact that to produce a complete reaction, a certain definite weight of reagent is required. Acidity, the quality of being sour, sourness, tartness, sharpness to the taste, as the acidity of lemon juice. Acidly, sourly, tartly. Acidness, acidity, sourness. Acidulated, of acidulate. Acidulating, of acidulate. Acidulate, to make sour or acid in a moderate degree, to sour somewhat. Acidulant, having an acid quality, sour, acidulous. Acidulous, slightly sour, subacid, sourish, as an acidulous tincture. Acerage, the process of coating the surface of a metal plate, as a stereotype plate, with steel like iron by means of voltaic electricity, steeling. Aciform, shaped like a needle. Acinaceous, containing seeds or stones of grapes or grains like them. Acinaceous, a short sword or saber. Acinaciform, scimitar-shaped, as an acinaciform leaf. Acinesia, same as akinesia. Acinity, a group of suctorial infusoria which in the adult stage are stationary. See suctoria. Acinitiform, resembling the acinity. Aciniform, having the form of a cluster of grapes, clustered like grapes. Acinos, alt of acinus. Acinus, consisting of acini or minute granular concretions, as acinos or acinus glands. Acini, of acinus. Acinus, one of the small grains or drupelets which make up some kinds of fruit, as the blackberry, raspberry, etc. Acipenser, a genus of ganoid fishes including the sturgeons having the body armed with bony scales and the mouth on the underside of the head. Sea sturgeon. Acergy. Operative surgery.